My guest this week is Eddie Schimdt. Eddie is an Oscar and Emmy-nominated producer, director, and showrunner, and he's produced 6 projects that premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. Chelsea Does, starring Chelsea Handler for Netflix, which he directed, Valentine Road, nominated for 2 Emmy Awards, Twist of Faith, which was nominated for an Academy Award, and Chain Camera, all for HBO. The film is not yet rated for IFC and Troubadours, The Rise of the Singer-Songwriter, part of an Emmy-winning season of PBS's American Masters. Currently, Schmidt is directing a documentary feature about the story behind BlackBerry for Mark Wahlberg's Unrealistic Ideas, and he recently directed and along with Seth Meyers executive produced Peacock's Good One, a show about jokes, an adaptation of the popular Vulture podcast that follows the craft of comedy from the ground up. His films as executive producer include Gilbert, A Gilbert Gottfried Story, and Beauty is Embarrassing, which premiered at South by Southwest before premiering on PBS's Independent Lens and earning an Emmy nomination. And he also co-wrote the book The Finger, a comprehensive guide to flipping off. And it is my great pleasure to welcome to Revolutions Per Movie, Eddie Schimdt. Hi, Eddie.
Hey, my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You picked something that just, even before I had a video store, this VHS tape was in every comedy or cult section across the nation, a film called Tapeheads, which I think the cover art either drew you in or repelled you in terms of getting into it. A 1988 film, with John Cusack and Tim Robbins when they're both kind of on the ascension as actors. I want to ask so much about why you picked this, because you said it's a very underrated film. But because so much of the film is about the industry, and it seems like a very LA kind of film, and, about production and, working for free and, all these dreams you have. Like, I just want to ask you a few questions about what you actually do, because I get confused about the line. And when I hear somebody's a producer or an executive producer, like, I'm assuming what you do for like American Masters is going to be much different than something you did for like the Gilbert Gottfried story.
It does change. I mean, I've moved more into a phase where like I'm show run series and I direct for series and for films, for feature docs. That's sort of more the phase I'm in. But coming up as a producer, I guess in a way it sort of became a catch-all because, mostly I work in unscripted or nonfiction. And so the definitions of what a producer does can vary. And in fact, there were a lot of times where I think I even did a talk at South by Southwest of like, sort of dispelling myths about producers, at least in sort of my sector. Because, when I came up, I mean, I was Kirby Dick's producing partner for a long time. And it's like, there were, big chunks of those films we made together where it was like just the two of us and shooting and recording sound. And he's tapping me on the shoulder and not moving me and we're asking questions together. And it was very much a partnership. So, but I did also have to like manage a budget and hire people to, flesh out the crew on bigger shoots and post and whatnot. So I guess in a way it was like my entry, because I'm like I suppose, and sometimes it can feel like a trap. I am a very creative person who wants to tell stories and also can be fairly practical minded. So it means that I can juggle a lot of things or things that maybe, are in the logistical, practical realm. But as my career has gone on, I've been able to try to shed much of that because I prefer to just be purely creative. But I always think, well, I'm doing it to enable telling these stories, right? So, there's a film called Valentine Road that I produced that I really, it was a first-time filmmaker at the time. And I really believed in her. Her name is Marta Cunningham. She's gone on to a great career. And I believed in the project and I was willing to do whatever it took. So I did certain things of managing budget and logistics where because I just really wanted that story told. And so for like Gilbert, I was an exec producer in the sense that I just, again, believed in Neil Berkeley's vision for a Gilbert Gottfried documentary from the beginning. And so we would just talk it out and I would suggest, interview questions and how to approach certain things and try to bang on doors to get money and, look at cuts, whatever I could do. But, directing is, the thing that I love. That's where I feel most like, okay, yeah, I feel most calm and excited, out in the world, because I feel like, oh yeah, this is what I should be doing. So everything else is sort of like on the way to like get in the sweet spot of like, we're minting something, we're capturing something,
Is it scary working on a documentary film in terms of, in your head, you've got the subject and the story you'd like to tell? Like, let's say about Gilbert, right? There's so many paths you can go down, so many different ways you can tell it. Are we going to have talking heads? Are we going to make it, we're going to put animation in it or whatever? Is it kind of weird to like just have something that's just so out of your control?
Well, it's like, another background of mine is sketch comedy, right? So I did sketch comedy and improv, all through college and, and after that in Los Angeles. And there's something about that. I think people who don't do that might not realize that, you work so hard, you prepare so much in sort of practice and in rehearsal to get yourself to a place where you can be completely free. Because that means that you're in the moment, you can draw on anything present or within you because you've trained so well. And I just found working in documentaries very translatable from, I guess, some of my other skill sets, because I thought, oh, okay, like I'll think and think and think of like, what could happen? What do I want to know about this person? Like I just become a sponge, I read everything I can. I try to, map out what shots I could do, or where do I think that I want to see them, or what's in their life that would reveal them or be evocative for an audience, or whatever it is. And so that way, when we get there, as they say, the crew expression is on the day, when we film it on the day, and you're going to film 5 minutes later, when we do this on the day. So when you do it on the day, it's like, I feel totally open and receiving and excited and present, because I feel like I've thought this through. And so it's really just about creating an avenue of revelation in a way with someone or some people coming together, or, something slightly combustible, maybe, of like someone having to confront something or having to reflect on something. And so in a way, I guess I've thought out all the things that maybe couldn't go right, or what could get in the way, and I try to remove them so that when it's happening, I can just be clear.
One of your films that you worked on, This Is Not Yet Rated, was a film that I constantly pushed on customers, along with Beauty is Embarrassing, which, if people haven't seen, it's a total masterpiece. But just the scene behind the ratings, the movie ratings organizations, and all the politics and religion tied into it, and you having to like hire private investigators to find out who the secret league, that is put together to decide that, oh, Boys Don't Cry is going to get an NC-17 rather than an R because of this, and this violence is okay. How did you put that film together? I was really curious.
Sure. Well, that was, again, so it was a period of time where, Kirby and I really set up shop as partners, filmmaking partners. And so we had, we both had this passion to sort of go behind the scenes of the hypocrisies of the movie ratings board and what that said about American culture. And there was so much that could be revealed out of this idea of like gatekeeping what is quote unquote safe for children. And then how that can affect the artistic process in so many ways, and so on and so forth. So we pitched it as a film that we said, we're going to hire a private investigator to find out who's on this secret board of parents. And we said, and the third act of the film that you're watching will go before the ratings board to get rated.
Yes.
So those things were baked into the pitch. And even so, this was the time when IFC, the Independent Film Channel, was actually making independent films. Not so much anymore.
Right.
IFC Films does, but the channel was making docs. And so we I think really had to convince them hard to give us a very small amount of money to shoot a development presentation. And I always say this to anyone who takes this path of like, if you get that sort of little bit of money up front where you're probably spending more money, you're not paying yourself, whatever, like treat it as if you are making the film. Don't treat it as if you're making, like, this is the start of the film, right? We're doing it. So like I pulled a favor with a friend of mine, got an interview with Matt Stone of South Park. That was in the presentation tape. We did actually find Becky, the PI that we then hired. Like she was all baked into this, like, 5 to 10 minute tape. So if you saw this, it was like, oh, it's pretty clear what this is going to be. And even then it was like, yeah, we don't know. Like they were sort of waffling on whether they wanted to do it. And then we had a doc that we had made that was coming out, it's premiering at Sundance and got an Oscar nomination called Twist of Faith. And so then we were at Sundance, like having breakfast or something with the executives, and they were like, okay, you're here with your last, got an Oscar nomination. I guess we can give you some money to make this. And even then we had to take pay cuts. And I remember just thinking like, wow, this is going to be hard, but I really want to make this. And interestingly enough, to tie it back to Tapeheads in a way, there were elements in it where I felt like, this is a movie that I would have wanted to see it at 18 years old, which is when I saw Tapeheads. Like, it just felt like it spoke to me. And I, again, being kind of a teenager in the 80s, like I was very much followed Frank Zappa's like crusade against the PMRC and putting labels on records. And so I was like, doing this topic about censorship with a prankish sense of humor, like that's me. Like,
right.
And I'm giving this, I got to do this, and I got to kind of make this for the 18-year-old me. And so again, to go back another earlier question, producing for that meant that like Kirby and I are conceptualizing this together. I'm in the car with the PI shooting it myself, for days on end, hoping that she'll find something. Right. So I'm not, that's where sometimes I would get annoyed with that producer label, be like, oh, you must just raise the money. It's like, no, man, like I got my knee in the dirt and a camera up to my eye. I'm like on the freeway trying to pick off shots of the people she says are MPA raiders in moving cars. Like, right. That's a little more than producing. That is DIY filmmaking. And so, I've carried that through. I've shot material on almost everything I've done. I've done some kind of second camera because I'm like, well, I'm here. I'll pick up a camera and get another angle or something, So we really wanted to infuse that film with humor, purpose, and a kind of a rousing spirit of like, hey, this is fucked up. Like this is not cool that like great art has to go through this grinder, and for what, and for whom, and who's making the decision, like all that stuff. So I think, that was in a way, and that was kind of the last project that Kirby and I made together, because I sort of felt in a way that was the one that was most me. And I felt like, well, this has my sensibility. I really should be out, looking for projects to direct myself, because I think this sensibility is reflective of a lot of me.
Well, already what we've talked about is so parallel to Tapeheads. You're talking about working on spec and like just doing it for the love of it. The film came out in 1988 and it was like a theatrical flop. Like it didn't do well at all. And basically just found kind of a life in the video store realm. Is that where you first saw it?
No, I saw it theatrically because
what?
It had a mid-second life, a 1.5 life as a midnight movie in Boston. So my close friend, Dan Radigan. So, it's like, again, Tapeheads appealed to me because it was about two lifelong best friends. So Dan Radigan, my friend since I was, an infant, basically. And he went to BU and he said, I think he wrote me like an actual snail mail letter and said, you have to come up to Boston to see this film because it's like everything we love. Like, he's like, it's just, and the fact that Mike Nesmith had exec produced it, and it was from the people behind Repo Man, and Weird Al had this little cameo, and Devo did this crazy song in it, and Chicken and Waffles. Like, it was just an endless list of like, they made this movie for us. And it's playing at this movie theater midnights to packed houses. And so I think when spring break came, and this was the spring of 1989. So it had flopped initially, and then it found this sort of second life, and I think led to getting a re-release so it could flop a second time in theaters. It flopped again
Oh my
as,
God.
as a mainstream release, but as a midnight movie in Boston, it did great. It played at the Lowe's Nickelodeon, which is then a movie theater that Dan Radigan and I then went to work as ushers for about a year later. And it was like a total joy to see that with a crowd who appreciated it and loved it, and with, my friends since I was, a little kid. Like it was great.
Well, I wonder why Boston was drawn to it, because it is such a California movie, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Maybe just because it was culty, had a culty vibe, and they did show cult films. Like when we were ushers, we showed The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. So I had to like keep order amongst all the Boston punks of 1990 that wanted to like break down the glass and storm the theater.
Oh, those 1990 punks. Watch out.
Well, yeah. So they just had a built-in, I guess, because College Town,
Yeah.
And so, but you're right, it is such an LA movie. I was reflecting on this morning before we sat down, where I was like, I saw this when like wasn't living in LA, and I thought, all of the like kind of jokes about the soul crushing elements of the industry, I was like, is this film 12% responsible for me coming to LA? And like it probably is. And yeah, and then anyway, we'll get to this, but I had then a connection with the producer of this film that carried on into my career. So
yeah, it's amazing. The film was directed by Bill Fishman, who I done a ton of work that I'd seen, but I was not familiar with. He did this really kind of strange film called My Dinner with Jimi, which was about a recreation of the Turtles going over to England to meet the Beatles and then hanging out with Jimi Hendrix. It's kind of a lovely little small shot on video film. He did Car 54, Where Are You? But he mostly directed videos. He did like Institutionalized for Suicidal Tendencies, The 3 O'Clock's Jet Fighter, Pet Cemetery for the Ramones, and, then all the way up to the Backstreet Boys. So it's really fascinating that this film, he was making music videos at the time. And then after this movie about, trying to make music videos, he's still making music videos. He's just an industry person. Were you familiar with his work at all?
Less so him, and more so Peter McCarthy, who produced it and co-wrote it. I knew had produced Repo Man and Sid and Nancy, were two faves of mine in high school. And then I think by that point also, I think I'm Gonna Get You Sucker had also come out. And he had produced that. And I thought, wow, like this guy, this producer and co-writer of Tapeheads, has produced all these things that really are in my sensibility. I'm really interested in this. So even though, and actually I guess I had seen some of Bill Fishman's music videos, but probably wasn't as aware of him at the time.
Yeah.
It was more that it bore that sort of imprint of like, oh, this is coming from other people who've made trusted cult films that I love.
Right. Well, it's funny too, because there was a period where films were totally influenced by MTV, and this is still the era where the editing and the set design and the costuming and the soundtrack is all based on, an MTV tie-in or a potential. I'm sure they would have loved to have seen John Cusack and Tim Robbins hosting MTV, being like, hey, up next, we've got Suicidal Tendencies, come see our film. But it didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Although soundtrack, I did, I've got the vinyl. The vinyl is here. Just
yes, we'll get to it, because this was okay. So the film, real simply, is about some security guards who also have like an independent video production. And it's kind of interesting. They're kind of trying to do a little bit of a Wayne's World thing, like 4 years before Wayne's World. Like they have their own company, Video Aces, and they just want to get into production. And they have a very like cable access Super 8 mentality to it. Did you ever do any of that? Did you make films as a kid, or were you part of that cable access world?
I definitely, well, not cable access, but we definitely made goofy films with Dan Radigan, a number of my other friends. So this was in Connecticut. I'd moved to Connecticut. I'd lived in Staten Island. Dan was the lone friend that I sort of kept from that period, moved to Connecticut. And then in high school, yeah, my other friend Joe Stern. And anyway, we would gather people together to make goofy movies on VHS. And at the time, it was really, there was no technique. It was like, we're going to point the camera and do something stupid in front of it. You know, there's no sense of like how to execute a gag. But we did do some fun stuff, and we did a sketch film called Burning Pig, and we did like sort of our own spy type ridiculous spy movie called Mantra at Midnight. So yeah, that spirit of like, just let's pick up a camera and goof around with your friends, and that can be something, was definitely ingrained.
Oh yeah, I had a little camera, and I was always remaking like SCTV sketches and Monty Python things, and it was amazing. You could make title cards, on pieces of paper and film it and edit it in camera and have it was kind of incredible.
We did borrow from someone's neighbor was like, oh, I've got this VHS editing machine, so it was like VHS to VHS to edit.
Wow.
But he had some kind of like early switcher. So like for the sketch film, you could do these geometric shapes to do transition, up like a black triangle that would go.
Yes, they have that in this film, which is one of the things that also I really loved, was when they're, when they have the party at, their job with everyone's cool and in bikinis and dancing and like, don't tell the boss. When he's doing the video on the fly, it's all those geometric shape crossfades, like diamonds, circle.
Right.
The wipes are amazing. And I have a soft spot for that because I remember the power of that. Just being like, oh my God, like we're transitioning with like a diamond going in and out, and we're in another scene. You felt like a professional.
Or that you could make something, a repeated action. I think that like somebody, kissing a piece of glass, and you could do it 5 times in a row or something.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting because Tim Robbins and John Cusack have a very interesting look in the film. I'm sure that they came up with it themselves.
Yeah. John
Cusack, slick back hair and kind of a greasy mustache. Tim Robbins, I loved his bowl cut at the beginning. I really hoped he'd stick with it. But, they're young here. Like John Cusack is just like off One Crazy Summer and Better Off Dead. And Tim Robbins was basically like Howard the Duck, and just Bill Durham same year, but hadn't popped yet. What do you think of their performances?
They're super fun. I think I thought I read that they came in initially and read for the other parts. So in other words,
reversed.
Yeah, so Cusack is playing like the kind of sleazy, slick-talking business guy, and Robbins is playing like the creative wunderkind, like the sort of soft-spoken lost boy. Uh-huh. And I guess they came in initially to read for the other parts, and I don't know if they decided to switch or Bill Fishman maybe said, why don't you switch? And they just seem like they're having a great time. I think that's what came through, is like, they almost seem like they don't give a shit in a way, which translates into enjoyment. I mean, there are so many moments for me that are just committed to the laugh in this. Like John Cusack is, trying to fast talk this. She's a producer, an agent that then he gets involved with a little bit, and they're at some sort of tropical themed bar, and there's tropical drinks, and so he's doing this like stupid patter to like try to woo her, and he picks up what he thinks is a tropical drink, and it's a citronella candle that looks like all the other tropical drinks. And I've probably seen it 25 times, but I will still laugh every time he drinks from the citronella candle and spits it out while trying to be a fast talking, smooth guy. So yeah, I just enjoyed their performances. I think I actually read too that Tim Robbins later said that he had mono for most of the shoot.
Oh my God.
That adds an additional layer to his sort of like kind of sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Like maybe he was just sick, but it worked,
Yeah, their energy in it's really, I mean, again, like you said, they seem to be having a blast, and there's like a devil may care nature to this film. In a way, it's like they kind of know what they're making, right? They're not like, we're making something that is just going to transcend time or whatever. You know what I mean? They're like, we're just going to make this fun, cultish, weirdo thing. And, but it's always all in. Like, they don't, even if some of the scenes like kind of hit a wall, they hit the wall hard as actors.
Oh yeah, they're fully committed. There's two scenes like where they first at that party you're talking about, where they're security guards, but they kick their chairs away and they do the dance moves of their favorite, R&B group, the Swanky Modes.
Yes,
and they don't even do them particularly well. It's not even syncopated, but it's so joyous. And then that scene has an echo later on where they're dancing all night on the roof and the sun comes up, and it's like, yeah, who among us, that were whatever goofball artists growing up didn't have these fun where it's like, yeah, I remember that. Like we hung out all night. I remember probably in Boston one night where we were just bored and we'd cooked the spaghetti dinner that was horrible. So we just spent the rest of the night throwing the meatballs at the, building next door. Like you just do stupid stuff. And so that just struck a chord. Like, yeah, I believed them as best friends, even though like they're not admirable people or like they're just so, but you don't care. You're not in it for that. You're not thinking like, do I see myself in Josh or Ivan? Like you're not really approaching it on that level, I don't think.
No, they're a little impenetrable, but they do once in a while sneak in something. Like I really like where he said, I got a shitty job, but I know it's a shitty job. Like he's like, get with it. Because we've all had those jobs where it's about the community of it. Maybe like your theater job was like that, where it's like, I'm maybe not getting paid a lot, but I like the people I work with. And afterwards we can go just goof off or we can play films.
There are truisms to that. I think he says, the master plan, do what you got to do so you can do what you want to do. And for so many of us who have had to do day job type of things to be able to keep trying to make art, then that even in a goofy movie like this, that resonates,
Yeah, true. Definitely. Well, the other thing, this is just a side note. One of the things I love in films about artists is whenever you meet a visual artist in a film from this era, they always live in a giant empty loft for some reason. Like, doesn't matter if it's After Hours or this film. It's just a giant, like, no furniture space with one artist with like a giant canvas working in it. It's a trope that for some reason, I just love because I'm like, where the hell is this?
Well, also, by the way, today we can't afford those spaces, but
not at all. Like that back then you could barely, there'd be like 9 people living in it,
Well, one of the things that's interesting is there is you mentioned earlier, like it's such an LA film and, coming from the East Coast originally and then moving out here, like there was, and I think still is in this sort of within the arts, a sort of LA versus New York element of like, is what is coming out of LA serious? And so the idea that, most of those movies that have those kind of characters, they're in New York lofts, but actually here and kind of presaging what has come to pass. Like they were downtown, they were in downtown LA where they set up shop and where she was an artist. And downtown LA has become a much more revitalized, cool place, which it was not in the 80s. So it's interesting that they put that out there and put her artist character, in Los Angeles. She was not a New Yorker.
Yeah, and I remember I was in a band. We played at Jabberjaw, and it was like, there's nothing here except for this thing. Like there's nowhere to go. It felt like, oh, you want to get something to eat? Like, good luck. It's like just desolate.
Yeah, I saw Red Cross, I think, at Jabberjaw.
Yeah, it was a great space, but it was, again, you're just like, where am I? Like, this is downtown. But, I think downtowns are a missing piece of most major cities in America these days anyway. I wanted to ask you about Roscoe's House of Chicken. That's a real place?
Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles. It's real and it's spectacular. That was another thing is that like we thought, so there's the whole music, there's a bad commercial in the film that they see and then make this like slick, ridiculous music video style commercial for Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles. And we thought, being East Coast boys, we thought, oh, that's just a gag. Ha ha, chicken and waffles. then when I moved to Los Angeles, and I was like, no, Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles is real and delicious. Like it's soul food, really. And it's just that, you know, that to the uninitiated, that name, you're like, what is that? But it was fantastic. And I would go to Roscoe's all the time when I moved out here because I was like, it's great. Like it was the perfect meal of like, you know, the fluffy, buttery, syrupy waffle and the crunchy, salty fried chicken on the same plate. I think I would mostly get the Carol C special, which was a breast and a waffle. You could get 3 wings in a waffle. I forget what that was, but yeah, it's then still going. And one of the things that was when I got to work with Peter McCarthy, segue to that, but he told me lots of fun things about this because I would just ply him for stories. But he told me that, you know, like whoever, I don't think his name was Roscoe, but whoever was the owner of Roscoe really thought that Tapeheads was going to make him the next Colonel Sanders. Like he believed that this film was going to be so successful that it would skyrocket Roscoe's to like, you know, national recognition and a super huge franchise. Of course, that did not happen, but certainly if you are, whether you're a fan of the film or not, if you come to Los Angeles, you should go to Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles.
Yeah, it was weird. I did the same thing. I just like, this is a total fake out. Like, you know, I hadn't seen this film in a long time. And I was like, did I really see this? And then I watched it and I was like, oh yeah, I watched this so much. I knew it backwards and forwards. It was so weird. There was a period in my life where I saw this a lot, but I'd forgotten because I just knew the story. I knew the lines. I knew where it was going. I knew the songs. It was, I don't know. It was really strange. I think I just lost it.
Well, wasn't it interesting too, to look back? I mean, what an amazing cast of contributors, not just like cult movie icons littered throughout the you know, the main cast, but just all the music. You know, you've got Devo doing this song in Swedish to be this like fake aha type band for a music video. You hear a little snippet of They Might Be Giants in a bar scene. Like this is like, you know, this film was shot in 87. So, you know, and Fishbone is portraying a country and western band called Ranch Bone. Like it's just filled with all of the
Circle Jerks.
Yes, right. Yeah, Circle Jerks. Jello Biafra as like the FCC commissioner who like.
Oh, that's so perfect because that's at the time where he's getting all the shit for like Frankenchrist.
Totally.
And he's just leaning into like being a target for this parental sticker stuff or obscenity or pornography.
Yeah. And so it's, I think as a time capsule now, it's so just like opening this great, you know, can of snacks. You're just like, oh, I can't believe, oh, wait, it's just filled with fun stuff from that period where I think, weirdly, because I have no fondness for the Reagan years or Reagan policies.
Really?
But,
no, kidding.
but there was not, it was not an optimistic time. You know, it was a very dark time for in many ways.
Yes.
But there is also a spirit of fun in the art space that I think even while trying to do serious work, like people were also out for fun. Like there is, so it's, I don't know. It was great to go back and see all these, Susan Terrell and like all.
She's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the cameos are vast and furious, and sometimes they're very short. Like I was like, oh yeah, Weird Al's in this, and it's like he's in it for like 8 seconds. He's barely in it.
Well, and I'll say it, when I got to work with Peter McCarthy, one of the greatest compliments he could give 23-year-old me. We were like, I think I had gotten him into an edit room so he could he needed to like whatever. He needed access to an editing room and I got it for him. And I asked him like, hey, Weird Al. And he goes, yeah, you know, I kind of wish like, why did we just shoot it in long shot? You can't even tell it's Weird Al. And he looked at me and he looked at me with my then curly hair and glasses and loud shirt. And he goes, it could have been you. And I was like, I was like, it could have been me. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, it's so funny. The same thing with the Ted Nugent scene, which it's like a montage of them being of John Cusack being kicked out of trying to get into the biz. But it's so weird. Like Ted Nugent, like walks through an office. He comes in through it with the gang, gets kicked out. But it's like so brief. And it's shot it kind of doesn't like land the last because you are so distant from it. But, it was really amazing seeing like Martha Quinn in it as a VJ. Don Cornelius as Mo Fuzz was fantastic. And I wanted to ask you about his part because basically the characters go to Mo Fuzz to start working. And he tells them about a little thing called working on spec. And it's such a great moment. Because he's just like, I believe in you guys. You guys are going to be great. But there's no money. The first one's free. And they go and do it. And they do a great job. But then they bring it back and he's like, well, the next one is also spec. And I wanted to know, is that still a reality in this business?
Well, I mean, certainly writing on spec. I mean, I think where you would, write something you love or believe in or to try to get made as a screenplay or something like that, certainly there's a ton of spec work in the sense that people who want to be directors or have to go out and shoot something with friends or whatever, and now at least you have the potential to go viral, so maybe I suppose people wouldn't look at it in the same way. They would think like, oh, I've got an outlet for this, I'm making it for TikTok. Essentially, it's, until someone's paying you, it's on spec. But I think the difference with this is like making something for somebody else that you don't get paid for. But people, I don't know, because, it's interesting how I got to meet Peter McCarthy is, well, I mean, I worked on spec. I mean, I was a free PA. I was a free PA on his directorial debut, Floundering. Then I was a free on-spec assistant editor for Floundering. Yeah. But through that, I got to know him, and I had experience working in an edit room, and then got like a real job in post-production at New Line Cinema. So I was like, okay, it did pay off. Sometimes you got to work for free to get your foot in the door. At least you did when I started. Not maybe not now, not so much. It's not frowned upon. So you do want to pay people, but yeah, I think when you have a dream, you'll do whatever you can, right? So that's
absolutely
part of that. And so, yeah, and the trade-off for me was that I got to be in the end credits of Floundering. The whole cast and crew is on the roof of a building in downtown LA that's still there. And Xander Schloss and a couple other musicians are singing a very sloppy rendition of What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding. And then it cuts to the cast and crew of this, scrappy indie movie that had all these big stars in it, but, dancing around to the song. And so preserved in amber forever is then 22-year-old me dancing around, there's the end of it is pretty close to the end is me standing next to John Cusack he's holding a dog and I'm there next to him. And if you think about it, it's like, well, I had just seen Tapeheads, I don't know, 3 years earlier. And here I am, I'm working for free, but I am working with the guy that produced that movie, and I'm standing next to the star at the end. And that was, in a way, a symbol of like, okay, like, I don't have any connections. Like, your dreams are kind of possible. Maybe not exactly how you imagine them, but like, if you go for it, there is a possibility that something will happen.
Right. And then you could make the next Blender Children video, So, yeah, let's talk about the music videos, the fake music videos in this. We already talked about Chicken and Waffles a bit, which I did love that they had the animated chicken wings come to life. I thought that was like kind of a brilliant little moment.
Well, so many 80s films did have the little bit of claymation.
Exactly.
It is perfect that they had that. And then if you stay through the credits, I love the fact, because, you think about, it's not a big budget movie, but they spent the money to shoot and record the entire Roscoe's music video in Spanish, which unbelievably fun. So yeah, there's that. But yes, the Blender Children.
Yeah, the debater, Lords of the New Church, basically,
Yeah,
doing like a heavy metal video in it with tragedies, and then you've got oh, what's the other one? Oh, the baby doll that we talked about with
yeah,
Devo,
yeah,
where they have the aha looking muscle bound blonde haired
yeah.
dudes lip syncing to Mark Mothersbaugh singing their song "Baby Doll" in Swedish, and I love that scene. I was a huge Devo fan. Devo were like a really important band to me. Anyone listening to this already knows that. But I was kind of off the bus, after Shout. But then they came back around the time of this, and they were doing this acoustic Devo set, and it just charmed me. They were sitting on stools playing like Choco Homo and Mongoloid and stuff, and I was like, Devo are great. And then I just was like, I love anything, even though like this album that it's off of, Total Devo, it's not the best Devo. I kind of prefer this version of this song because it was already kind of a sloppy chance to kind of like it was kind of the single, right? And it wasn't going to be on radio. It's just out of step. But there's something about having Mark Mothersbaugh re-sing it in a different language that makes it like the perfect Devo song.
Well, and by the way, that Swedish version, which is not available in any other format, is on the soundtrack album.
I know. It's so weird.
Find it anywhere. It's not streaming. It was not on any Devo compilations. Because I'm a big Devo fan and I've bought all the Futurismo re-releases and everything, and it's not none of them. But yes, here, preserved forever in Swedish. What's funny about that scene too is like it almost shouldn't work because you're like, the whole idea is like that they don't have money, so that they're going to do the cheapest special effects possible by basically abusing this band, dropping paint on them and glitter and feathers, and it's in a way you're like, you see it coming, like you can see that they're going to drop paint on them, but it doesn't matter. I still laugh because you're seeing these muscly guys trying to look sexy, serious, and European, getting paint dumped on them and glitter and feathers thrown in their face, and it just works.
Those three actors, I'll say, who play the band are amazing in this. They're such good sports, and their look of concern but trying to hold it together while they still have to perform it seems very real. I love it because it looks kind of painful at times, like when the glitter and stuff's going on. I'm like, yeah, I bet they were struggling to breathe through some of the stuff that was being put in their face.
Well, and again, going back to sort of like the cultural, fiefdoms of the 80s. So it's like we were very happy to see this big-haired Euro pop band debased in this way. That was funny. Like, they took themselves seriously and they should be taken down a peg, and Tapeheads is going to do it. There's a great little moment in that where John Cusack is getting ready to dump the bag of feathers out in front of a giant fan. And I love these little comedy moments where there's almost nothing to it, but it looks effortless, but it's great. He's about to lean over and his tie is about to get caught in the fan, and he just pushes it back with his finger. I don't know why it's so perfect, but it's like, again, they just look like they were having such a great time with this. And like, it's not in the script. Like, his tie was going to get caught in the fan. He just, in character, flips it back with a little finger.
I always wonder if that had to do with them just being young too, and just being like, not everything had been done by them yet, right? And so they were like, I'm going to inhabit these two people, full on. And again, yeah, it's so funny, that the transformation of Tim Robbins' character is through his hair. It's like it gets a little spikier, and you're like, oh wow, he's like a cool producer now.
Right.
But what do you think about the subplots, like the romance stuff, the political stuff with Norman, like this S&M tape that gets in the wrong hands, that if it's going to destroy his career, and him trying to get it back, and and the swanky modes getting involved. There's a lot of kind of confusing storylines.
Yeah, it's very dense in that way, which again I respect, I suppose, putting in just a lot of silliness. the political plot, I suppose I liked in a way because, at the time it was like, again, he's sort of a Reagan-esque figure, but in this sort of like, you know, sexual situation or whatever, like
Right.
like ascribing perversion to this sort of conservatism, which, as we've seen, it's it's just continued. So
Yes.
I actually think that Tapeheads was
Yes.
ahead of its time in a lot of ways. Like Norman Mart as a candidate, where he says at a press conference, like, I'll, whatever he says, put my meat on a slab up against Gorby any day of the week or something like Gorbachev. And look at what political campaigns have become. That's not very far. Like that was supposed to be ridiculous then. Like, well, no, old white guy political candidate would ever say something like that. Like, no, actually, you know what? It's de rigueur. So I think in some ways, Tapeheads was ahead of its time.
Yeah, Clu Gallagher, is that the actor who plays?
Yeah,
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 he's great
it's
as
great.
the senator. Like he's such a good prick.
He's
And
he's
and
so sniveling
yeah,
and ugh, yeah, he's wonderful.
yeah, it's really gross. And then the stuff with Susan Terrell being like the person who's perving out with him.
Yeah.
I just love her. Fat City is still one of my favorite films.
That city's incredible. She's great in Crybaby, the John
Oh
Waters.
yeah, absolutely.
And of course, in one of the sex videos is a young Courtney Love. I think putting
Yes.
peanut butter on Clu Gallagher's ass or something like that.
Yeah, she's uncredited as Norman Spanker.
Yeah.
So it's, but yeah, the names are funny too. Stiv Bators is playing Dick Slammer.
Yeah. And Jessica Walter from Arrested Development is Kmart.
Yeah, exactly. So they're just, it's dumb fun. So when you were working with the producer of this film, you mentioned earlier that you got to ask a few questions, but like, were there things that you never got answered that you've always wondered about?
Well, he did tell me that I guess the first cut was like 3 hours long and contained a whole subplot with Hervé Villechaize, like from Fantasy Island, I think as a hitman of some kind.
Wow.
Like, please, Peter, can that see the light of day? But it hasn't. Maybe now, maybe through this, there will be a public out for this cut.
The time is right for something like this. I can imagine almost everyone involved in this film having a fondness for it and looking back on it as a place and time. Again, this was a period, late 80s, lots of straight to video stuff, a lot of teen comedies, a lot of cultish stuff. But this, along with like maybe Repo Man, Valley Girl, was one of the ones that kind of brought all of those elements together in kind of successful way. Versus like something like Bachelor Party, where you're like, oh, the REM and the Fleshtones are on this soundtrack. It's going to be good. And it's just like garbage. Or Dr. Detroit, you're like, Devo's in that too. And James Brown, and it's like, not good. But it feels like this was kind of playing to an audience that it knew was there.
Yeah, very much so. And I think because so much of the, as you just referenced, these mainstream things seemed regressive or formulaic or didn't have any joie de vivre. Like there was no life in them. They just seemed like they could have been made by committee. And so with something like this, I think there is a very much a punk rock spirit to it, where it's just like, yeah, we just got our friends and we thought it was funny, and we put in the music that we love and actors that we think are cool. And if you like it, great. And if you don't, go fuck yourself. Like, we don't care. And I think particularly now where we've seen, and it's cyclical, but like this conglomeration of media, and which is also part of this film is not yet rated, but it waxes and wanes. But when you come into this period that we're in now, I think with the mega streamers and this sort of like, if the algorithm doesn't like it, we're not going to do it. And so it's like, well, what does the algorithm like? What are true crime and celebrity? And so it's like, well, that's what you're going to get, at least in my realm of nonfiction. That's mostly what you get. And it's like, this was a time too where like there was the mainstream film industry, but there were these, whatever you want to call it, art film. There was an indie film circuit, and you could play and go, you know what? We don't need a home run here. We need a single or a double. Like, this film doesn't cost that much. And so if it makes double that, great. Like there's an audience
Right.
for that. It doesn't have to appeal to everyone. Like you kind of shudder to think of a Tapeheads being made for everyone because it would please no one. Like the whole nature of it is like, this is for the people who get it and love it and will cherish it forever. And everybody else maybe doesn't care, but that's okay. Like art doesn't have to be for everybody. And I think a lot of the problem with sort of visual art or commercial visual art in the form of films and television is this sense of like, well, if everybody doesn't watch or everybody doesn't watch every single episode, like, well, that we can't have that. Like we have to make sure that it appeals to everyone. Why? Nothing great appeals to everyone.
Right. But do you get a sense, do you understand why this film didn't connect with people like when it first came out?
Well, I guess there's maybe a few things. So it was originally, I think, produced and financed with Dino De Laurentiis' company that then went belly up. So this film, people wouldn't realize, premiered at Sundance. I mean, it was called the U.S. Film Festival then, but that became Sundance. So this film was poised as like a fun indie darling. And it was supposed to then come out a couple months later, but DEG, the Laurentiis Entertainment Group, was going down. And so the rights had reverted back. Again, in another weird, sometimes these great things come out at weird places in time, right? Where there's like in-betweeners. So this film was made of the theatrical arm of NBC Productions. Well, NBC doesn't really make theatrical films, but they made a few. I think Elvira was another one, another cult film. And they made this. So the rights reverted back to them. And then they found a small distributor called Avenue Pictures, who put out other great films like Drugstore Cowboy and After Dark, My Sweet, and like cool movies, put this out. But I think because this film was neither, serious like a lot of indie films of that time, nor flat out comedy for everyone, it was a weird, I think that almost in a way, like my opinion is that the smart indie distributor didn't have either the sensibility or the marketing muscle or both to really put this across in a way where people who would love it would come to it. And maybe, as sometimes happens with these films where it takes many more months or a year or whatever later to finally come out, the culture isn't quite in the same place. Like maybe you kind of missed your moment in a way. And so I think this first came out theatrically in October 1988. And so maybe by that point, like, I was off to college. I didn't know it had come out until it was playing midnights and my friend told me about it. Like I was the audience and I wasn't aware. I would have taken the train from Vassar, where I went to college, down into the city to go see this in October 1988 if I knew it was there. So I think it just didn't reach initially the people who would have embraced it, I guess.
Yeah, and it was such an interesting time. I can't speak for Boston, but at least in Portland, we had like 7 or 8 indie theaters that were all showing different things. So it wasn't like, oh, Tapeheads is playing all over town. It'd be like in one theater, right? And then over here would be Tampopo, right? And over here would be, She's Gotta Have It. And, it was like incredible time in terms of decision making, and like it was just a plethora of kind of amazing stuff playing theatrically all the time.
Yes, 100%. And that you had because there was no other, and it took so long for something to get into a video store, and would they even have these smaller films? So there was this sense of like urgency. We need to see these things and be conversant in them because this is the latest. This is art, and this is the latest, coolest thing. And we all want to know about what's happening. I mean, all of those, Something Wild, like Jonathan Demme, so many from that time. Well, I mean, quite frankly, a lot of them are the cornerstones of what is now the Criterion Channel and Criterion label. Like Making Mr. Right just had this whole resurgence, and what a great film that wasn't appreciated. And so I see Tapeheads, which admittedly is, I guess, dumber and sillier than these smarter satires of the time, but I love it just as much, and sometimes if not more, for that spirit. The willing, I think you have to be really smart to play dumb.
That's going to be tattooed on my forehead soon.
Thank you. Well, I always wanted this. There's a New Beverly Theater in LA, which is now owned by Quentin Tarantino. And I always wanted a New Beverly double feature to be Tapeheads and UHF. I just thought they were like,
Sure.
cousins. Like these movies should exist together in a theatrical experience. Another cameo that you might not spot is Bobcat Goldthwait under the pseudonym Jack Cheese, and not doing the Bobcat voice of the 80s, but he's like this infomercial, guru on the television. And so I guess that was a question I didn't get to ask Peter McCarthy, is like, why did you get Bobcat in the movie, but not doing the Bobcat voice that was the de rigueur 80s character, and he's not credited as Bobcat? Like the sort of self-flagellation of that move. Like at the time, Bobcat was like a big comedy star. Like that would have helped, one would think. But I guess other things in this movie that I love that admittedly most people might not, but for me, and I'm a big John Waters fan as well. And I guess I always respect and love artists where I know that it came from them, and that probably there were people around them who said, hey, you shouldn't do that. Or like, is that really that funny? And they were like, no, it's funny. Like John Waters, I think he talks about how in Cry Baby, he has Allison, the girl that's pining for Johnny Depp, like drinks a jar of her own tears because she's missing his one-tiered, visage. And that the producers begged him to cut it. And he was like, no, my fans will come to this. They want to see the heroine of my movie drink a bottle of her own tears.
Of course.
And you know what? He's right. So in Tapeheads, there's the ridiculous scene. And I don't know if you'd even do this today, but and arguably it's not great, but just the spirit of doing it and keeping in the movie is the sort of female ninja fight that happens between the two female leads of this movie. It's absurd. It shouldn't be there, but it's just, again, in the spirit of like, let's just have fun. It is in this movie.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing when you said, I was like, oh, right, there is a female ninja fight. Like there's all sorts of little things in this that'd be so easy to just, you're looking at the big picture of it, but there's all these little subplots and little absurd moments.
Yeah.
And it moves really quite fast.
Very fast. And so, and there's so many other, if you love this world of cinema at the time, like there's so many other little connections and footnotes. So one of the hitmen in the movie is Ebby Rose Smith, and Ebby Rose Smith wrote Falling Down, and he's also in Fluttering, and there's this whole ecosystem of weirdos, basically.
Is he the younger?
He's the balder, I guess.
Okay.
And Ebby Rose Smith then was in your neck of the woods. Maybe he lives there, but he was on Portlandia for a recurring cast member of Portlandia. So obviously Fred Armisen was like, I remember that weirdo from growing up and watching weird movies. That weirdo's going to be in my show. Like,
that's great.
There's the lineage there is great between. Yeah.
The one thing I love about the film too is that you can't mistake it for any other year than 1988. There's something about the way the light hits the camera, the type of film stock they used. I'm not even talking about like what they're wearing. I'm just talking about like how the city looks, what a room looks like. I mean, do you feel that when you watch this?
Yeah, I do. Maybe I don't know that I want to live in it today, but like it feels very comforting to live in it as a viewer. Like I'm like, yeah, I lived through that time. Yeah, right.
Yes.
Look like that. People had furniture like that. Yeah, sure. And then it captures, it's interesting because it does capture this sort of like underground punky 80s, but also the sort of like nouveau riche 80s and the slick entertainment 80s. Like it's all slices of 80s in this 80s pie. Well, so the Swanky Modes, the fictional R&B band in this, Sam Moore and Junior Walker play them. They were both R&B stars. Yeah. They were not a band, but there are, I don't know, half a dozen songs in this movie that they sing that were written by top songwriters that, they sound like slick 80s versions of R&B songs, but they're pretty fun. And Ordinary Man is the big closer, this big rousing closer. And it really is enjoyable. I think it's enjoyable. And actually I think this film never came out on Blu-ray, but the original DVD comes with a CD single of Ordinary Man.
Oh, that's so killer. Is it a mini CD?
Yeah, I got it. No, it's not a regular. Well, I guess it is a mini CD. Look,
Oh yeah,
there it is.
there we go.
There it is. Um, but yeah, so the Bet Your Bottom Dollar is the one that is the opening sequence where the home movies, Josh and Ivan's home movies, and it's played under that. And yeah, there's the music in the movie is really good. There's a Bo Diddley track that's just mostly instrumental. That's really fun. That plays over maybe a couple times in the film as transition. And yeah, I was I guess that was another thing that appealed to me, and it's a thing that's always appealed to me too about Weird Al. Like, music, movies, and comedy are three things that I love. So anything that can have music, movie, visual comedy, and musical comedy, and all together, and do it well and make it fun, but have musical integrity, that means a lot to me. And Tapeheads does have that. Like the music is good, even when it's ridiculous in this movie.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the soundtrack does, it leaves off like the They Might Be Giants track and Circle Jerks and Bo Diddley and stuff like that, and is really a Swanky Modes ode. It's mostly that on the record.
It is mostly, yeah, it's at least half modes.
It's really interesting. And I always wondered, I mean, the soundtrack album thing, oh God, that was such a thing, right? Because again, like I mentioned Bachelor Party earlier, it was on IRS. I had to have it because I had an unreleased REM song on it.
That's right. Is it Ages of You? Is that the one that's on it? Or
which one?
Is it Ages of You?
It could be Ages of You or Tornado
or
something. I can't remember. Or no, it was Wind Out.
Yes. Okay.
Wind Out. And it had a Flesh Tones American Beat 88 or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, I trust it. And I remember I saw the film opening day because of IRS.
Wow.
So I do kind of miss the soundtrack thing, because sometimes you'd end up with really obscure, one-offs, things that you just couldn't find anywhere, like the Fishbone thing we talked about earlier.
Yeah, and I would say you still, like, if you go back, so I spent a lot of time on Discogs. I love Discogs, and I've got a big vinyl collection, and I've gone back and I've gotten like the soundtracks to Married to the Mob and Something Wild and Bachelor Party, and because those songs that were one-offs from bands that we loved, REM, Oingo Boingo, Flesh, all these great acts, they really were one-offs. And a lot of times now, even in the digital era, those songs are gone forever. If you want to hear them, they're not widely available. And so going back and finding the used vinyl is the only way to get them. And it's the fun pilgrimage to find them.
Can you imagine like going to Island Records and being like, all right, here's our soundtrack album. It's got one Devo song in Swedish. It's got a slowed down Fishbone song. It's got a Bo Diddley song, and then the rest are, Sam and Junior Walker, and and have a field day. Good luck with it. It's going to really hit the kids.
And by the way, the big single is a fake commercial for a chicken and waffles restaurant.
Yes, exactly.
This thing's going to print money.
And they did. They made it. Like, can you imagine like how much gets stopped at the door nowadays? That's like just the idea that they're like, yeah, let's push it through. Let's do it, is like, wow. It's just a sign of the times.
It wouldn't happen because today going to be like, well, the algorithm doesn't like, just be like, not enough people would justify this existing. And then you still had the opportunity. And I know some people will bemoan and say like, oh, well, it meant that, whatever, their fates were in the hands of few sometimes decision makers, but there were also these wild card mavericks who, like a Michael Nesmith, who would go, this sounds funny, I'll get behind it, I'll put money into it. There's somebody at Island Records who goes, yeah, sure, why not? Like, they didn't go to committee, and if they asked 10 people, probably 8 would have said, why would you?
I know.
It didn't matter. Somebody goes, I like it, I'm putting it out. And so, that's to be admired.
Yeah, some overpaid person at Island is like, yeah, it's my job to just push things through. And then they still had a job. It's amazing. Like,
right. There is a shot in here that I paid homage to in one of my own works. I retain a lot of things for use later that one wouldn't suspect, cross-genring. But there's a shot in this. First of all, I love the car that they have in this movie. I think if you have a goofy 80s wacky dudes comedy ever. Got to have a great car. UHF has the 59 Nash Metropolitan, that tiny little car. And in this, they have this goofy yellow Jeep. And so they're driving around at one point and they're looking, I think, in the want ads, maybe. Ah, yes, the want ads.
Yes. where all bands are formed in the 80s.
Right. And Cusack is eating some gross thing while reading the want ads. And he's talking about, while eating, talking about like something about a cow eating its placenta or something absurd. And like, so as he's saying this, like, goop from his sandwich or burger is like dripping on the want ads. And so, so in Ugly Delicious, many years later, I had a beat with Gustavo Arellano in this restaurant in LA where he was talking about how this Taco Bell had sort of maybe ripped off this old Mexican restaurant. He's got this book in his hands and he's eating a taco and it's dripping on the biography of the Taco Bell founder. So there's like this squishy,
that's so great.
Yeah, it's sort of, so that's
that was for you too. You're like, no one else is probably going to pick up on this.
No, nobody's going to pick up on it. But to me, it was like, it made sense. He had the book in his hand. He's talking about this. And so it made sense to have the salsa drip on so.
Where do you think John Cusack's character Ivan and Tim Robbins' character Josh would be today?
Oh my, wow. Ivan, the business guy, he would probably be, streaming exec fighting to keep his job, not, saying no to everything just in the hopes that he could still, be able to keep his house on the West Side.
Yes, absolutely.
Josh, that's really interesting. I'm going to say that Josh would have had to move to a country that had government support for the arts.
Yeah.
in order to live. Which wouldn't be here. That wouldn't be here. And maybe he lives in, I don't know. Yeah, Copenhagen or someplace like that. I don't know. Have you done Get Crazy on this show?
No, I'm dying to get to it. But I don't know much about the soundtrack. But that's an amazing I mean, it's not for everyone, but I love it.
Yeah, no, same. It has the song that Lou Reed sings in the movie on it, which I don't know if you can get anywhere else. And it has Sparks did the title song, which I don't think you can find anywhere else. And it's really, there's a lot.
So the song that Lou Reed is singing on the couch with the guitar, that's in it? Or the one he does on the stage?
One he does on the stage that's about the sister of the main character,
yeah.
Right?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to it, people. Get crazy. It's got to happen.
Yeah. But you're doing a real service, I think. Like the scope of your pod is so great because you're bringing on really great people, but talking about all these films, some of which are known and some of which are less known. But I think through the passion and the work of the people who come on, it really does open it up for rediscovery. So I think I'm always looking to see, well, what are you going to get to next?
Well, it means a lot to me because as a video store owner, I had so much of your work and I pushed it hard. I thank you for everything you make. And I'm excited to see what you do next because as the video store, documentaries were such a big part of my identity. Like, you would walk around the store and what did we have on the wall? It was like a poster for My Brother's Keeper. It was the first thing you saw when you walked in. And most people never saw it. But like for me, it was like my identity.
Wow. Well, yeah. And I think, thank you. And I think for me too, like, I'm happy to have this body of work that does represent who I am and what I love. And in the same way that, like, me at 18, then 20 something, going and finding Peter McCarthy and being excited to work for him and thinking like, oh, well, if I can inspire some 18 to 20-year-olds that are out there who go, oh, wow, Gilbert, beauty's embarrassing. This film is not yet rated. Like, this is a cool body of work that actually is not for everybody, but it means something. And for the people who care about it, it hopefully really connects with them. Like, I'm cool with that. Like, I'm not aiming to be Michael Bay or like make these giant, movies and stuff. Like, I'm happy to make the things, like we're in post now on this documentary that I'm EPing that I believe in. That's about 4 burlesque dancers who perform solely to the music of Weird Al called Tight and Nerdy. And it's another one of these like shaggy dog stories where you're like, this is really about people who find themselves through this, what might seem at surface a silly or ridiculous proposition. And it's like, no, they really are. There are deeper things here about who they are and why humor and burlesque and why their relationship with each other mean something. And I love things that have that sort of silly and sublime element to them.
Oh, obviously. Well, now that we got the niceties out of the way, I have a very pressing question for you. Because at the end of every episode, I ask the same question, but I tailor it depending on what we're talking about. So, on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how many buckets of chicken from Roscoe's House of Chicken do you give the film Tapeheads? 1 bucket to 10 buckets.
Wow. It's hard with these, because I can still love something, but also when I think of like what 10 buckets of chicken really means, I guess I'm going to give it 8.5 buckets of chicken and a waffle.
I have 8.5 here. I didn't have the waffle. I got close. I'm going to give you the pass. That is the right answer. Eddie, thank you so much. It's so good to see you. Hey, we did it.
Yeah, we did, man. It's great.
Thank you for listening to Revolutions Per Movie. We release new episodes every Thursday on your favorite podcast app and additional bonus episodes every Sunday on our Patreon. The show is a completely independent affair, so the best way to support the show is through our Patreon at patreon.com/revolutionspermovie, where you can get weekly bonus episodes and shows, exclusive limited edition flexi discs and records and CDs featuring guests that have appeared on the show, and other exclusive goods sent to you just for joining. You can follow us on social media at Revolutions Per Movie and also find out more information about our various guests in the episode show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye.